Hi there, welcome to this chat. I've got with me today Deb Hayes. Some of you may have heard Deb speaking recently on the platform on, is it ZB Plus, Deb?
Yeah.
And Deb is a midwife from Ashburton in Canterbury, and she's been instrumental in initiating a parliamentary petition, I've got to get my words right here, against the new scope of practice guidelines which the Midwifery Council of New Zealand want to put in place. And just a quick note to say that the Midwifery Council and the College of Midwives are different organisations, because that's easy to think they're one and the same. Before we start, I'm just going to give a little bit of a shout out to Manuahini Kuriro, who will soon have their own website, which is great. And you'll be able to buy t-shirts from there. And today I'll just show you the t-shirt I'm wearing of theirs, if you can see it. And they also will be selling the one that that infamous one, Men Are Not Women Even If You Squint, the one that got the woman banned from New World and Autaki. So anyway, now back to Deb. So Deb, you're actually a practicing midwife, is that correct?
Hi, Katrina. Yes, I am. I work part-time in Ashburton. I'm on the core, so that's like the hospital facility. So I help midwives that are working in the community when they bring their women in to birth their babies. And we also accept from Christchurch the postnatal women that are a little bit more complicated when they've had their babies. So we're kept quite busy with helping breastfeeding and
so you get the complicated cases from Christchurch, is that right?
Well, but because we're a primary unit, they are advised to go birth in Christchurch to deal with their complications, and then when that's all settled, they come for the breastfeeding support and the primary care, and we look after them like princesses.
Oh, that sounds all right. Maybe I should come for a holiday. Hey, so this scope of practice, now I have, of course, I've become a bit aware of it. I'm not intensely involved with it, but I've become aware of it. And you talked about, just before you mentioned the words woman and breastfeeding and things like that. So now what I understand is that the Midwifery Council have decided those words are no longer needed in their scope of practice guidelines. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They think that it's okay to just have a generic term, whanau, that will cover us all. And the language that has been creeping into our documents also just breaks women, birthing women, and women having smears down to body parts. So you're a cervix haver, not a woman.
Okay. Nice.
You're a chest feeder, not a breastfeeder.
Yeah. So they've decided that in the scope of practice, which is basically about women having babies, they do not need the words woman and baby. Is the word baby out of it as well?
So a baby has gone. Infant, the word infant is mentioned once. Now, infant is from birth to 1 year, and midwives take care of babies from birth to 6 weeks. So they may be wanting to expand our practice, but still baby is too offensive for them.
Oh dear. So anyway, for people who are watching who may not be familiar with the word whanau, that is a Maori word for family, but it is more extensive than the English word family, and it can just mean quite extended family. So it can be quite a broad term. So they're saying that whānaus have families. Is that what they're saying? I mean, sorry, whānaus have babies.
Yes, they are. So it's all generic. I mean, I've got a big problem with this in that whanau, if we're going to categorize everybody now into a birthing and postnatal experience, then I don't think we're safeguarding women, because I think that as stakeholders, some of those whānau might not actually have the best interest of the baby and the mother at heart, and they might be the ones making the decisions. So I'm concerned about the midwife-mother relationship, that it's now extended, and the midwife may not be able to see that there's, for example, some domestic violence going on in that family.
Yeah, yeah. So they so this scope of practice is actually working towards taking women out of the central position here, and
Yeah.
and just making it everybody else's business.
It appears that way. Yes.
Right. And as you say, so does that mean that that if a midwife, you know, has a client, you know, a woman who's pregnant and going to have birth, and some of the family want to get involved in it, then what? Then the woman has no say. She has to sort of let them come in and be involved, or what?
Well, the woman should have the power within her family to choose who her support is. But if we have a legal document that's now saying whānau, then people that whānau that might not actually have the best interests at heart might muscle in and bully the woman, come along to appointments. I mean, you just have to use your imagination, really.
Because they can cite the fact. Is that right? They can cite
Yeah,
the
we've
fact
got a
that,
document. I'm whānau, I'm here. Listen to
right.
me. I'm going to make the decisions.
Yeah, yeah. So that, yeah, and sometimes, you know, as you say, women can be bullied. They can be frightened, too frightened to say no. They can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you say legal document, how does that get legalized?
So the Midwifery Council, they've taken 4 years to formulate this document, just by taking those words out generally, and they have to submit it to Parliament. I think it's a select committee or such like, and it basically should be getting ticked off. Now I've got this petition to say, please look closely at that, because particularly the feedback that the council sought from stakeholders told them that 90.8% of those stakeholders did not agree with that new scope.
90.8, right.
Yeah. 3.7% agreed.
Okay. And so when you say the stakeholders, are they the people who made submissions after it was put out for submissions, or was that before that process?
It was already, as a document, already a proposal, if you like. But on reflection, is it actually a proposal if they're not going to listen to the feedback?
Right. So when you say the stakeholders, you're talking about the feedback from the submissions that they got after they put it out to the public for submissions, which I will note, I think they gave 3 weeks or something like that to
Yes, it
to
was.
get submissions.
It could have easily been missed.
Yes.
Definitely. Midwives are very busy people.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of emails.
Yeah.
From the College of Midwives and the Midwifery Council.
Yeah. Yeah. And because, you know, when you put a submission together, you know, I mean, sure, I mean, I know some people sort of dash off a paragraph, and that's fine, you know, absolutely fine. But, you know, if you're like someone like in a midwife or any sort of position that wants to lay out your case in a way that, you know, this is going to get been taken notice of, then that takes time, you know, as you say, you know, if you're a busy person,
it takes
take
time
hours.
And yeah, it takes time and more than one person. If we've all just putting in what we think as sole people, I think it may have been lost. I think there were some very good groups of people that put their proposals together.
Yes.
But they weren't listened to either.
No. I mean, I put in a submission actually, and you know, I've never actually had children, but I totally,
Yeah, but
totally
you're a
object
woman,
to,
and yeah,
yeah,
and I think, you
totally
know,
object to
against the
that.
background of women in recent years having their rights and their safeguarding and their spaces and their sports encroached on
Yeah,
by
yeah,
males that
yeah,
want to
it's,
be
yeah,
males.
it's
It,
thing after thing after thing, isn't
it
it?
yes,
Yeah,
this is particularly tactless
yeah,
when we've been attacked already so
yeah,
badly.
yeah. That's a good word, actually, Deb, but it really is tactless. I mean,
Mm,
you know, and the trouble is, of course, is they get into their little echo chambers, don't they? And I mean, I will say we all do that.
yeah, yes,
I won't sort of, you know, really put them down too much for that, except for the fact that they are public servants.
they
And
are, and they're receiving public funding
yeah,
for
yeah.
this as
And talk
well.
about that. How much does it cost over 4 years to do this? Any idea?
Well, I've had a look at the proposal, and so the estimate, but at that time they were planning on a 2-year project. The
Yeah.
estimate was 377,000. So I have no idea how much they paid in
In
the
the
end.
end.
And
Yeah.
they were funded by the Ministry of Health. And the
Oh yeah.
Ministry of Health have got to tick this off, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, the other thing is that the way that the wording of the letter to the ministry to ask for this money, now I can't quote it exactly, I've written it down anywhere, but here it is. I wrote it down. So what they were proposing to persuade the ministry to give them the money was that they were going to have this new continuity of care model with women in the context of the whānau at the centre. Now,
The whānau was at the centre.
yeah, women in the context of the whānau at the centre. I mean, what sort of doublespeak is this? I
Oh,
don't.
actually, I think I do remember reading something about that, and it's like reading it over and over and thinking, you know, what exactly do they mean? Yeah.
Well,
Do you
I
think
don't know if
they
that's
do it
intentional.
do you think they do it deliberately, like put in this word salad
Yes.
so that you don't really, yeah,
Yes,
you,
people like you and I don't get it. I don't know if the Ministry of Health got it at that time. Of course, that was another administration, wasn't it? Another government that ticked this off. So maybe they all talk the same language then.
yeah,
Hopefully things are changing.
perhaps perhaps they understand
And
what
we're
it
not party to that
means.
special language.
No, no. I mean, it's like talking about, you know, like being a cervix haver
Yes,
instead of a woman. And I think that, okay, now the when a public service puts out a message, it should be written in the language that most people understand most of the time and can read in the shortest possible time.
yes.
And I don't think that if you're talking about cervix havers, that you're going to instantly know, okay, that's me, you
Mm.
know. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, so you spend time, they expect you to spend time working it out what it
Yes,
means. Yeah.
yes.
Instead of just saying
How
woman.
safe is that for the people that might actually miss that? And I
Yeah.
just have to say that if we are changing our language for the sake of women who prefer to be men but still have a cervix, then have their health practitioners that have helped them on that journey, have they failed them in not explaining to them that they still have a cervix and that they're going to come across women language still and they still have to have a smear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it our responsibility?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because when you think about, when you're talking about numbers, you're talking about the number of women who say they're men, okay, tiny,
Yes,
and that'd be far easier to explain that to them, that okay, yes, you're going to come across this language, and you know, you mightn't like it, but you just have to still understand
Yes.
that this is, that you sort of take notice of it. Yeah, so
Yes.
that you're quite right, Deb. It's be far easier just to
Yes.
explain it to those very, very tiny, small number
Yes.
than get 50% of the population, or 50.99% of the population
Yes.
to understand new language.
Yes. And to feel demeaned
Yes,
and, broken down to a body part.
I know,
It's
and
not
that's,
kind.
yeah, I feel really insulted about that, and I think just so many women do. They just think, how dare you? How dare you sort of do that to our
Yeah.
language? And I've spoken to, Dai Landy from Manawahini Kuriro, and I've said to her, I said, now I understand when Maori started losing their language. Now I understand how it feels, and unfortunately,
Yes.
sometimes you do need a personal experience to understand that.
Yes.
And I said, and it's just actually it makes you so angry,
Yes.
um
It does. I've got things to do in my life. I don't want to be doing this. I don't
no,
want to be interviewed. I'm
yeah,
bad at it. There are plenty of people that would be much better than me, but I'm the one that's done this petition. And by the way, we've got 4,200, 300 now.
4,300. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I will put the link to that petition in the description below for those
Thank
who
you very much.
want to
Thank
sign
you.
it. Yeah.
Thanks, Katrina. Yeah.
Um
I just wanted to say as well that the Midwifery Council, I feel quite insulted that they don't feel that as a midwife, myself and my colleagues can't actually be kind enough to every single person that walks in the door.
yes.
Because
Yes.
that is what we have
Yes.
done for decades. Every single woman that's walked through that door, we are
Yes.
kind to. And
That's
why
right.
do we have to be directed with our language? We're careful.
Yes.
We're careful and we're kind.
Yeah. Have this imposed on you,
Yes,
almost as though that you cannot make a good judgment yourself.
absolutely.
About that.
And also to have it in a document with the writers of the document in charge of our if you get penalized because you've done something wrong. I'm sorry, I can't find the term just now. They're in charge of our
So you're saying if this document becomes legal and you don't follow it,
yes,
there'll be
they are the ones that are going to bring us to account. So I think they may have set us up to be very nervous practitioners for these very small amount of women that think they're men coming through. They've set us up to be very anxious about this. If they didn't do this, we'd have carried on being kind. And from the LMC, who get to know our women really well, they have a care plan, they have a birth plan, and they come in and carry out the birth plan. Why can't they have a comprehensive plan of care postnatally, just like everybody else has, with their particular needs?
Yes.
What's wrong with that?
That sounds really simple, actually.
It's simple and it's done all the time.
It sounds much more simple than 4 years worth of discussing a document where you take the words woman, mother, and baby out of.
Yes.
And it costs in excess of probably $400,000.
Likely.
Yeah, that sounds. It sounds.
And that's in the background of our practicing certificates. The cost of our practicing certificates, that's an annual practicing certificate that we have to have legally to practice, going up every year with consultation, but it goes up regardless of what we say. So currently sitting about 700 now.
Oh, wow.
And I think in April it goes up again, and I don't know what to.
And every year, yeah.
Every single year.
Wow. Hey, Deb, so what kind of punishment would they mete out if you were discovered to be in breach of the scope of practice, if it made it into legislation?
I don't know if I can discuss that, Katrina.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I realize there's some things that you have to be cautious about. Yeah, and that, yeah. But anyway, that still doesn't sound good. That you have to, that you will, if this goes into legislation, then you have to basically live in fear that you may inadvertently use the words woman, baby, and mother
Yeah.
when you shouldn't, and live in fear that there will be a repercussion.
Yes. So are they go? Yes. I mean, this is maybe 80% of midwives that will use the language that they've always used. So,
Yeah.
are we all going to be in trouble?
Yeah, because now we know that and I you know I don't want to get into sort of slagging anyone off, but I mean we do know that women who say they're men are highly sensitive, and the fact
Yes.
that if you go and call one of them, inadvertently refer to them as she or a woman or something like that, they may report you, a midwife or something. That
Yes. Okay.
yeah, so that could happen. And I know that I did a presentation with somebody maybe about a year or a bit over a year ago for Women's Declaration International, and I can actually put the link to that at the bottom too if anyone's interested in looking at it. She was involved in midwifery. I'm not, but she made a presentation about that, and she came up with some numbers about the estimate of how many women who say they're men give birth in New Zealand. And there's
Yes.
no numbers in New Zealand for that. I believe there's no data collected at the moment. So but in Australia there is. So she took those numbers from Australia and she did an estimate per population for us. And it turned out that we're talking about six women who say they're men give birth, there's an estimate, give birth in New Zealand each year to
Wow. And we have 60,000 births a year on average.
Yeah, so that's who the language is being changed for. And as you say, there's no reason why a midwife, I mean, the chances of a midwife encountering a woman who says she's a man, being pregnant and giving birth, are very slim anyway. And there's no reason why she can't be trusted, that midwife can't be trusted to actually treat that woman in the manner that is comfortable for that woman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no reason why that
The
shouldn't
language
happen.
that's comfortable for her and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes, like every other woman.
Yeah.
Every woman is
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah. Yeah. So goodness, I guess now I find that when anything to do with transgender issues, let's say, come up in New Zealand, we start seeing the same names pop up time and time
Yes.
again.
Yes.
It's very much like a closed circle almost. And I mean, I understand, of course, New Zealand's got a small population, hence six women a year who call themselves men who give birth. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I find that quite disturbing though, because I mean, I for example, when the census, when Stats New Zealand were devising a new census and they wanted to bring in some sort of question about gender, and they they put it out for submission, the usual sort of basically 3 weeks or something like this, window to do it. And I put in a submission for that, and I had a look at they said they had this panel of experts to discuss things,
Right. Yes.
And I had a look at them, and I can't remember how many were there, and it could have been up to 12. I really can't remember now, but not one of them was what I would call independent, and I think they actually sort of cited them as being independent or something like that, but none of them could be said not to have a vested interest in some way in transgender ideology or something, whether it was like
that's quite disturbing actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was
I know for
various fields.
the scope of practice that the queer theorists have been heavily involved, and these are names that most people know. So you've got Elizabeth Curry and
yes.
George Parker and
Yes.
Jamie Veal.
I know all those names, and I'm not
Yes.
even in midwifery or
And Jamie Veal is, I think he's involved in Warpath. Yeah, he.
Or WPATH, is it?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And he promoted the eunuch archives. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have. Now, the other ones, they want that as a protected category or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
so
for
it's a
people, other
violent,
people, yeah, for people,
fetishistic porn
I'm
site.
sorry, we'll get back to that. Just for our people, WPATH means the World Professional Association for Transgender
Transgender
Healthcare.
health.
And in New Zealand, we have it called PATHA, which is just the Professional Association for Transgender Healthcare, Aotearoa. Yeah. Okay. So now back to what you're saying about the eunuch archives and Jamie Veal.
So they're a violent fetishistic site, porn site, and they believe in castrating boys. So this person is associated with a woman's document, a legal document that guides midwives in their practice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that is just shocking. Yeah. And is Jamie Veal, what would you say, he or she? Sorry.
I think Jamie Veal's a man.
Right. Who identifies as a
they're
woman.
A woman.
Right.
I think. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to know. Yeah. You know, I don't know. There's just so much. There's so much you can say about that, and you almost don't know what to say about that. It's just shocking.
It's mind blowing, really, isn't it?
And the Ministry of Health would have known that. It was the Midwifery Council would have known that. Is that who?
Yeah, Midwifery Council are conferring with George Parker and Elizabeth Curry, and Jamie Veal has helped George Parker in his queer theorist papers. Right.
So Jamie Veal was not part of the team that composed the new scope of practice, but was sort of more in a consultant type of person.
Possibly. It's hard to find the details of that, the facts.
Yeah. But that's what we know about him. So Elizabeth Curry, of course, we know Elizabeth Curry, who insists that pre-colonial Maori had diverse gender identities, yet in her own thesis, she said there was no evidence of that. But she decided
That's what we call a liar in England.
Yeah, we have a similar word. We use a similar word, I should say, or the same word actually. Yeah. And I do remember sort of like a bit of a funny story. Back when the oral submissions for the sex self-ID were going on, and Elizabeth Curry was part of the panel hearing those, and somebody actually brought that up in the hearing, and she got quite put out about it. Elizabeth Curry got quite put out about it, about her thesis being quoted at her in that manner.
Yes, a bit of shame, perhaps, if that's possible.
Yeah, well, she can't take it back in spite of what she's sort of saying now. But, right, so what else was I thinking about talking about in this? I mean, there's obviously must be sort of a lot to say about it, but it's also a lot of the time it's like, how much do you say, and where do you start and all that. But so talk about, I think it's quite interesting to talk. Do you know of anybody yourself who has actually been a midwife for a woman who says she's a man?
No,
No. So
no.
have you read anyone's experience, any midwife's experience of that?
No.
No. So in fact, no one you know has been the midwife for a woman who says she's a man. You haven't read anyone's experience of that. So we're just trusting that this council, this midwifery council, who are saying these things and putting the
Yes.
scope of practice and thing, is somehow making these rules and regulations that you have to sort of take on trust, or something, that you just have to take on trust that they're that what they're saying is actually sort of true and correct, when you've actually sort of never encountered the situation yourself. You don't know of anyone who's encountered the situation yourself. You haven't read any stories from anyone who's encountered the situation themselves.
Mm.
And then they're just
I guess I am just one person though, but but
Yeah.
given the statistics that you've just come up with, the one that compares us to Australia,
Yeah.
then I suppose that's not surprising.
So they could be, so in fact, they could be sort of, they could almost be saying anything, couldn't they? And there's no one saying, well, hang on a minute, that's not my experience, or anything
Yes,
like that.
well, yes, I guess they didn't have the type of people that might have said that on their panel of experts.
No, it doesn't seem like it. So, and I mean, although you're only one person, I mean, I dare say that there is a bit of a network, and that you do hear of other midwives'
Oh yeah,
experiences, and that if
yeah,
they,
yeah, it would be out there, I feel.
yes,
But
yes.
yes,
So we have no idea. We have no idea that they are actually acting in whose best interest,
yes,
you
or
just
in
have
good
to.
faith. I don't.
Yes,
I'm not
yes,
sure. I'm not sure anymore.
exactly. No, no, I wouldn't. It seems a bit dodgy to me too. So how long has the petition got to go, Deb?
It finishes on March the 1st, so we've got like 4 weeks,
So
really.
4 weeks to
Yeah,
go.
just short
Yeah,
of. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And is there sort of like a minimum number of
No, no.
signatures? No.
There isn't a minimum number. If you go onto the petitions website, you can have a look at the type of petitions, and there's lots of them, and a lot of them have very few signatures. Mine at over 4,000 is quite up there, really. It's there,
Good,
you know,
excellent.
there aren't many that have
Yeah,
got more than 1,000. So
yeah,
people feel very strongly about this.
yeah. I would
Even
imagine
then,
so. So
you know,
I don't think we did is actually sort of really describe what the scope of practice guidelines are for, and what they, and how much sort of weight they carry, and that sort of thing. So we haven't really talked about that, have we? So
no.
it
Well,
sounds
it
like, are
is,
these, yeah, you'd explain it.
yeah, well, the scope of practice is supposed to describe our boundaries of who we look after and what we can do, in the medical sense, what the technical things that we can do. But well, our clientele for a start is woolly. I don't know if I'm going to be taking Uncle Tom's blood pressure, and whether I'm going to be able to follow up on Uncle Tom's blood pressure. So
Who, like, you've got me lost, Uncle Tom?
yeah,
So,
well, Fanal family, am I
oh,
going
I
to be
see.
looking after
Yes,
one of those family members?
yes,
Are they going to want me? Because here they might show me the scope. Here we go.
yes,
Fano, I'm Fano. Will you check me?
yes, yes. Well, yes. Try and sort of like pressure you into doing something that you're not really there to do, or
Well,
perhaps
I
really
mean, if we've
qualified to do, or
got a
something.
document that's saying that we're looking after Fano, then perhaps they're actually in their rights to. Have they
Yeah.
put us in a really terrible position here, the Midwifery Council?
Yes, yes. And you could, of course. Now we do know that here I'm getting into sort of like the you know, the worst case scenarios type of thing. We do know that there are men who will always try and exploit loopholes, always.
Yes.
So they may try and get a midwife to sort of inspect them naked. Examine them, yes, naked, and sort of under the pretext or something that they're identifying as a woman or something like that.
I hadn't thought of that, but you know, if you read of experiences overseas, then similar things are happening over there.
That is happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, in so trans women, men that want to be women and have had some sort of surgery to form some sort of orifice in the correct place, but not the correct anatomy, are demanding that a gynecologist examines that orifice.
Right. So they'll go to a gynecologist and ask that. So have you heard of them, like if a midwife comes around, that they, I don't know, I mean, I'm just stretching here a bit, aren't I?
No, I haven't heard of anything like that going on at all
in the midwifery, but there's a chance here in New Zealand that if the scope of practice says that a midwife has to centre the whānau, that there is possibly a man who says, well, I'm part of the whānau, I feel that I might be pregnant.
Yes, maybe the Midwifery Council could give us some guidance about that. I have no idea what I'd do if that situation came along, because we are mandated to be kind, according to the Midwifery Council, even though we are kind anyway.
So it doesn't sound like the scope of practice, the scope of practice guidelines, have any protections in there for you.
No, if you put it like that, it doesn't feel like that. No,
because when you do some guidelines, okay, now we're talking about you want to do the best for your clients. The guidelines are there, but guidelines should surely be constructed in a manner that also give the practitioner some protections as well as sort of being, you know, kind and centering the client and that. And it doesn't sound as though these guidelines are doing that at all.
No, you're right. Hadn't looked at it from that perspective, but you're right. Yes.
So and when it goes, what happens after the end of the petition period anyway, and let's just say the 1st of March, what happens then?
There's potential for the petition to be presented to Parliament, but I think even if that doesn't happen, the petition is presented to a select committee to look at.
Okay. And then the select committee, what happens then? They decide whether to proceed with it or what?
Yes, they can disallow it. So this is written in a document that they can disallow it, but I cannot find anybody to tell me what that means, or whether whether a precedent has been set for this at all ever.
Right.
Nobody seems to know what that would mean or what they would do. Maybe this has never happened before. I am not sure.
Okay. And then when it goes to, if it does go to the select committee and they allow it, does it go before a panel then, or does it go into before Parliament itself?
I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the petition actually, just to sort of tell us about it briefly, what it says, unless you've got it there and want to read it out. People obviously will be able to read it in the link that I post, but just now, if you want to read about, tell us about it.
It's in here somewhere. have a look, sorry. It's timed out, but that's all right, I can find you. All right, so the request is that the House of Representatives inquire into the Midwifery Council's decision to use the word whanau and not use the words woman or baby in the scope of practice. And then the reason is the Midwifery Council has agreed to replace the words woman, baby and mother in English and te reo with whanau. And only 3.7% of respondents who submitted feedback in March 23 agreed with the new scope, and 90.8% were negative responses. And I believe the scope is not fit for purpose written this way, that sex-based language is essential to midwifery, and that women's sex-based rights are protected in New Zealand by the United Nations Convention of the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. That's what it says.
Right, excellent. All right, Deb. Well, I think we've pretty much covered what we need to about that. Now, if there's any more developments, we'll get back together and chat again, and perhaps we'll do that after sort of the petition has gone to Parliament or something like that. We'll keep track of what's going on.
Yes. Okay. We'll talk again.
Right. Yeah, we will.
Thank you, Katrina.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.